Welcome to a tutorial on how to use files in C++. I'm going to be using Visual Studios 2012 for these examples. I've gone ahead and made a solution. Now remember, whenever you're working with files, the program is going to look in the file with your source. So you can see here I have these example CPP files along with example.txt. That's where you want to put your text files. So let's go ahead and open up the solution. Alright, so here's my first example, and I'm showing how to write to a file, which is probably the simplest thing you can do whenever you're working with files, because it's pretty much just like printing out to the command line, except you're just streaming it to a text file. Whenever you're going to be working with file streams, you need to include the fstream header, and whenever you're creating a stream, you need to do OF stream, which is output file stream, and you could probably guess it for input would be IF stream, but we'll get to that later. So once you create a variable for your output file stream, you want to go ahead and do a command called open, and you want to name what this file is going to be. Now whenever you're doing an output file and you put this name here, it's going to create that file. It'll overwrite any file that's already there, it'll wipe out everything. So in the second parameter is the mode, and for our purposes we're just going to do ios : out. This will wipe the file and put the stream at the head of the file, and we'll just start writing to it. Later I'll show you different modes that can help you with your files. So here's your standard input for a file. This is a hard-coded input. First you're doing a check to see if the file is open. If not, there is an error in making the file, but if it was good, then go ahead and stream out to the output file. Welcome to file output, new line, and then another line, I hope you enjoy the ride. Now this just simply writes to it, and at the end we're going to say end of reading input. So we'll go ahead and run this, and it says end of reading input. Of course we're not going to see anything in the command line because it went to the file. So I'm going to hit stop here. Then I'm going to open up example0.txt, and there's our text. Welcome to file output. I hope you enjoy the ride. So that's pretty simple, but it's kind of hard to see the dynamic aspect of this. So I'm going to show you how to make this more of a dynamic thing by reading in user input. Right here, I'm doing the same thing, checking if the file is open, and I'm going to go into an infinite loop. Now, generally you don't want to do an infinite loop, but this one has a sentinel statement for if the input is ever -1, break out of the loop, and that's good to know, good to have. If we didn't have that, we'd keep taking input and we'd never stop and save the file. So we'll go in here, we'll get whatever input the users put in. If it was -1, break out of the loop, close the file. But if it was not, take whatever was inputted by the user and stream it into the output file, and just keep on doing this until you hit -1. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, and I'm going to mention it now. Whenever you have a file stream and you do .close, that's essentially closing the book on that text file. It's closing that stream, it's saving it, it's making sure that it's not going to be lost. If you didn't do the .close, the file would not save, and whenever the program is done, you wouldn't have a text file. So you have to be sure that whenever you do a open, you also have to do a close. Alright, so I'm going to run this program, and I'll do hello. Computer's lagging just a little bit. Hello. Another line, yet another line, and then -1. End of reading input, enter. Alright, let's check out our text file, and right there, hello, another line, yet another line, and my terrible capitalizations and whatnot, but there you go. That's how you output to a file. It's really easy. Alright, I'm going to move on to my next example, which is going to be reading in from a file. Need to comment that out. Alright, reading in from a file. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you the easiest to the standard to an advanced way of reading it in. And so first of all, same headers as before. I'm declaring a string line that's going to be the input line from the file, and then an if stream, which is going to be our input file. And then I say input file.open, and then the name of the file, and then iOS in. So I'm saying look for this file, and then do the mode of in. We're going to do our standard check for if the file is open and successfully opened. And then we're going to say get line, and then our source is going to be the input file stream, and the destination is going to be line, and we want to print it out to the console. And then that'll be it. So let's run. Hello world. Hello world. It's just like our previous programs that we've always first learned. Anyway, so that just gets one line, and I'm going to go ahead and open up what this file looks like. You can see it says hello world. My name is program. We will learn how to use files together. Well, that's nice. Anyway, let's do a loop to print out the entire file information. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out and open that up. You can see right here, same check, seeing if the file was successfully opened. If not, notify the user. While input file .good. Now, .good is kind of a compound function. It's very generic. It checks to see if the input stream was bad. It checks if the end of file was reached. It essentially checks to make sure that the stream is good. And you could use while not .eof end of file while we're not at the end of file. But .good checks for any problems that you wouldn't see. It takes care of a lot of things for us. So we're basically going to say, while we're good, go ahead and get the line in the input buffer, which is our file, and then output it to the console. And then once we're done, close the file. So I'm going to run it. And there we go. Hello world, my name is Program. We will learn how to use files together. Well, that's cool. Alright, so this is generally how you're going to be reading in your input in any program, because you can discretely look at every single line. However, sometimes you're going to have a large input file of just text to print out to the screen, and maybe you don't need to look at it line by line. Maybe you just need to read it all into a string. I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. This is a little bit advanced, and I'm going to briefly touch over what's going on here. But in a later tutorial, I'll be showing you how the STLs are working here. STL's standard template library. Anyway, basically what we're saying is seek to the end of the input file stream, and this is going to give us it's going to seek to the end of the input. So it's going to seek to the end of beginning to end. It'll seek right here. Then we want to resize our input buffer, which is line. We want to resize it to the size of our input stream. So now our line in memory is as long as this, but it doesn't have any information yet. Now we're going to tell the input file to seek back to the beginning. So we were at the end, now we're at the beginning, and now we're going to tell it to read its information from the beginning of our input buffer to the end of the input buffer. So we're sending in, by reference, the position is 0, and we're going to go to the size of it. Remember, the size is the size of the input stream, and then we're going to close the input stream. And that's essentially going to load our string with the bit information inside of the file with one call. Doesn't have to do any looping. Going to run the file, or run the program, and there you go. Printed out line, which contained all our information. Really handy. It really depends on the situation whenever you want to use that. Typically, you're going to want the loop so you can discretely look at what you're looking at, but going to go ahead and move on here. Comment that out and close it. Also close that. Example 2 is going to be input. I'm only going to show you one way to do this, and the way that I have this is I'm reading in numbers, and these numbers, 35, 12, 45, 13, or 32. Um, it could be anything, but I'm showing you that you can step through the input of a file and you can use it for more than just strings. As you can see, I'm using the handy A2I statement, or A2I statement, which takes the ASCII character and converts it to an integer if possible. Alright, so let me step through this. Input file, example2.txt. Also created a sum, initialized it to 0 up here. While the file is good, get the line. Now sum plus equals the integer value of the ASCII of that input, and then output the string value for what we're reading in, and then output the total sum. And then putting in cn.ignore right here so I can basically step through discretely and show as the numbers are adding up. It's pretty neat. You can do a lot of stuff with this type of structure. So file input is 35, total sum 35. Enter. File input 12, total sum 47. I can just keep doing that till it reaches the end of file. Pretty handy. You can take a look at the source and you can change it to however you want. It's very simple. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there with the input and output. I'll try and create a part 2 to show how to do some object-oriented programming with creating some data constructs that will hold information stored inside of a file, kind of like a database type of situation. Thank you for sticking with me, and you can always look at my work at mindbreakinggames.com, or you can email me. Just look at the description below. Thank you for your time.